Welcome to Thursday Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie At, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. This week, I'm speaking with Heather Ransom, founder and CEO of Zero Proof Go, an online directory and website dedicated to connecting people and venues with non-alcoholic options available to order. Heather is a veteran of the restaurant industry and has loved it since her first job as a waitress. She has moved up throughout all levels of the industry, including owning her own restaurant and bar for 20 years. She recently sold that venture this year. She's very active representing the restaurant owners and operators by being present in city and state level organizations that assist them. She's chapter president of the Bucks Month Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association and contributes to the workforce development and membership committees at the state level. Heather is also a consultant and restaurant tech leader and has honed in on those skills with her passion for non-alcoholic beverages to be considered in all establishments. It's imperative to have inclusion of all people without any judgment or stigma into the reasons one would ask for a non-alcoholic beverage at a restaurant. Everyone should feel comfortable and included as they spend time out with family and friends, enjoying their own party. You may see non-alc options on a menu in your local restaurant or see an item in your favorite retail store. However, there are many more hills to climb. With the countrywide local efforts of Heather and her team at Zero Proof Go, I am certain the message of profits and inclusion will be a part of an everyday discussion for all very soon. Mark your calendars now, as Zero Proof Go is sponsoring Happy Hour Happy for All Crawl on January 11th, 2024. As a consumer or retailer, you can join the fun in cities around the country. Participating venues will have specialty non-alc drinks and cocktails for all to enjoy. For more information, please visit zeroproofgo.com. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursday Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie Ott, and I have Heather Ransom here. Hi, Heather. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I know we've recently met through a mutual friend, Sam, who is pretty excited about your initiative and what you're doing in the non-alc space. So I can't wait to dig in, and we got to go with the good stuff first and kind of get learn about your journey through the industry and how you ended up where you're at. So, Heather, where are you calling from?
I'm actually in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, about 90 minutes north of Philadelphia, 90 minutes southwest of New York City.
Okay, nice location, pretty area. You're the third person in the last month I think I've actually interviewed from there. So there's some kind of force of nature happening through all the good stuff that's happening in that corridor. That's pretty cool. So are you from there too?
I was born and raised as a Philly girl, so I'm from Philadelphia originally, and I've pretty much lived mostly around Philly and New York my whole life, except for one little jaunt. I lived in Denver for about 3 months, and I'm like, it's too slow here. Get me back to the East Coast.
Too slow. Yeah, I kind of like, I can't breathe. I'm like, it's just, I don't know what it is. I mean, I love the mountains and all, but I don't know. I guess I need to be a little bit closer to kind of a coast. I mean, I'm not really near one in Dallas, but in Florida we are. I guess it was the same way for me in Vegas though.
Type
I don't know.
personality, right? I just need everything yesterday. So, I don't have a lot of patience for people who are too chill. Hopefully someday I'll get that way, but there's too much to do on this planet. So that's kind of my personality. My coast matches my personality.
There you go. There you go. It was a match made in heaven. Well, we got a lot of things to get done. We're mission driven people, and we're passionate about what we're doing. And it's no time like the present,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So, did you go to school in Philly or out east somewhere?
My school, I'm a little bit of a Renaissance person, so my school history is like a quilt. So, I was a business major, and then I was studying to be a French translator because my minor was in
Ooh.
international. I was international business major, but French minor. And then I'm like, I went to France on a scholarship, and they didn't treat me so well, and I came back and I quit that. and
Oh no, I'm
Oh
sorry to
no,
hear
it's
that.
okay. I switched languages and decided to learn how to speak Spanish instead. So now that's my second language of choice. But
Which has probably paid off a little bit more than French.
absolutely, especially being in the hospitality world, it was like having mentors around you
Yeah.
all the time. But then I went to my one of my early professors was a judge. He wanted me to be a lawyer. I then was like, no, I don't want to defend somebody I know is guilty. So I became an art student. And actually, that's when I started my hospitality career because I moved back to Philadelphia, and I got a job as a server. And I fell in love with the industry so hard. It was crazy. It was literally, as soon as I stepped foot in this restaurant, I wanted to learn everything there was to know about the business and work every position and work my way up pretty quickly. So I abandoned all my college pursuits and focused on that, and that was kind of like the beginning of my journey.
Yeah, it's funny. You never forget your first experience into your career, right? I mean, it's so impactful on how you feel. I've had other guests on here that were in the that were also in the restaurant industry, and it's just something that you just absolutely just have a passion for. It's harder, especially on families. We talked about missing birthdays, and because it's such a commitment. It is definitely hard, but it is certainly you have a passion for it, right? And the love of serving people and making them happy and getting it right, getting the right foods and mix, of drinks in front of them is certainly something that, is it's making me smile, even though people can't see my face right now. But it just gives you such, uh, bliss, right? Because people came in, they're experiencing your environment, and they're having a really good time, and that's exactly what the plan was.
Well, to that point, I will never forget because I'm a very serious person when I get into work. I really, really enjoy work. A lot of I like to be productive. I like to make a difference. I like to make an impact on everybody I see. I don't care if it's a toll booth guy, or, I try to make my human experience meaningful to me and anybody else that I encounter. And when I was younger, I was back behind the bar. I was volunteering on my day off to learn how to tend bar, which was pretty much my trajectory for my whole career. I will go work for free to learn and experience. And so at that time, I kept getting this, what are you going to do for a real job? Or you should get a real job. And I remember feeling so angry because I was like, this is my career, and it's a really important one because my job is to throw a party for you every day, and that life of service is important to me because I want to be here for you when you celebrate something wonderful or you're having a crappy day. Like I am in service because it is meaningful. It is a real job, and it's the best job. And over the years, what I've learned through my career in hospitality is that, the hospitality industry across the globe is really like the eyes and ears and the soul of life, because that's where real things happen and people really come together and commune and make decisions and are present for each other. And so even when I'm not in the hospitality space directly, so I just recently sold my bar after 20 years and I'm not working in operations anymore. I'm more industry adjacent now. I feel now it's my job to support the people who support the people. So now, I got into more consulting work. I got into optimizing profitability, store openings. I mean, my career took a lot of turns, but it's always really been along the same track. If I'm not really in the operations, I'm supporting the people that do, because quite frankly, hospitality is the hardest career to do. And currently, I'm on
Absolutely.
the workforce development committee for Pennsylvania Restaurant Lodging Association because we've had so many people leave the industry. And part of it's because it's been really hard, especially post the pandemic and everything else. But hopefully people will come back to it and find meaning and you know lean into the things that I'm talking about when I'm talking about having a life of service and throwing a party every day.
I like that. Throwing a party every day, which is true. I mean, we go out to eat way too much because we love it. But we go based on food, but we go based on experience too. It's definitely one and the same, and it is kind of like having a little party, whether you're just you and your partner or you and some friends or family, like you said. A lot of even business meetings and decisions, and a lot of people also call the industry the heartbeat of a city, right? Because it shows you the different cultures that are represented and the different types of restaurants and different ethnicities that are available. Dallas is really kind of an underrated example of that. I think it's kind of started turning a little bit in terms of the media in the last 3, 4, 5 years. But we're really, really lucky here. Just don't tell anyone. We don't need any more people moving here, increasing our property taxes. But yeah, I mean that's so
Well,
true.
I'm sorry. I just came from this meeting, and it was about development in Philadelphia. It was run by Biz Now, and they had private equity. They had mostly general contractors, developers talking about the development and the future of Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is having some challenges right now. And hopefully that's going to be corrected. But I was very hopeful because they were still investing in Philadelphia. But one thing that was interesting, I was there as like the future of retail and talking about development, but every single person in that room and on those panel discussions, there was like 8 people, mentioned how important restaurants were to not just put
Mm-hmm.
in these multi-use buildings and how important they are as amenity, but how important they are to the neighbors, and how bringing amenities to the people who are living in that neighborhood and providing valuable resources, everything. Like, nobody didn't say hospitality or restaurants and how important it was, which really was like validated my feelings about how important it is, right? And to your point, we go out to celebrate, we eat out too much, but the truth is it's really self-care, right? We go out because we don't want to cook for ourselves, but it's also community. And in a post-COVID environment, or as we get more digitized as a society, restaurants become that much more important to have community and meet strangers in a real way, that's uninterrupted by dogs barking and Amazon package deliveries. And there's nothing like a good old fashioned oxytocin hug to make you feel good after you've had a good meal and hopefully a non-alcoholic beverage while you're sitting there with your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it's coming. It's coming. We're gonna get there. So you mentioned you worked in different places outside of the operations, but where did you go after you had that first job as in a restaurant? What parts of the restaurant industry did you work inside of operations?
Well, so a couple things. When I moved up really quickly in that first job, and I want to give a shout out to them because they were some of my early mentors at Bridget Foy's. South Street Grill was called back then. Now it's Bridget Foy's on South Street, Second South Street in Philadelphia. And they were wonderful because they let me explore inside the four walls of that building. Meaning that, like, I start off as a server, and then I begged to learn how to tend bar, volunteered and did that. And then I became a bar manager pretty quickly. And then worked my way up to general manager. I think with another person there. We were kind of co-managing the business, and it was a pretty big operation. We did catering. It was like, doing over 1 million back then in the 80s, and 90s, actually. I'm sorry,
Yes.
90s. And, but I couldn't stop there. Like, I would go into my days off to learn how to prep. I would work the grill. I tried dessert and pastry chef. That was a total disaster. I realized really quickly I am not
That would be
a
so
baker.
hard.
I got like jazz. Like I got to be able to change things as I'm going when I cook and baking. Like you put it in and you're like, oh, I hope it comes out okay. Not for me, right? Part of that type A personality. But so while I was doing that, I decided I wanted to open a restaurant. So I was in my 20s and I went to a local organization called the Women's Business Development Network to write my first business plan. And that was to open a restaurant that has a bunch of other layers to it. As a matter of fact, like I said, I'm not in operations anymore, but you always want to go back. That business plan's burning a hole in my soul that I still want to do it. But part of the business plan was to put a brewery in there. So I was actually making beer at home. I was making beer out of a bucket, I call it. And it was right at the beginning of the beer renaissance. So as part of this business plan, I wanted to make beer, just a little 3-barrel system, because it's the business plan concept. I can't tell you without an NDA, even though it's 30 years old. It was about education around food and beverage. And I felt it was important to have the beer component. So one day, my Rolling Rock salesman came in, and it was really at the beginning of craft brewery. There wasn't that many, and it was hard. And my salesman said, he's like, oh, we're opening up a big 40-barrel system in Brewery Town, which is actually one of the earliest settlements of brewers in America. There was hundreds of breweries from the Germans back in the turn of the century. And so he's like, well, so we're opening this brewery. And I was like, can I come and learn? And I was working 6 days a week because that's the way the industry was back then, right? So we didn't have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And my only day off, I went to the brewery when it opened, and I'm like, I'll sweep floors, I'll run for lunch. I just want to be around it in order to learn, so I could be better at doing and executing against my business plan that I was hoping to achieve. And there was a lot that happened in that job experience. Number one, it became a job. They hired me, and so I left and my job at the restaurant, and I started brewing full time. At the time, there's not a lot of women brewers in the country, and craft brewing was not
Yeah.
a thing. For me personally, what was interesting is like I got to kind of shed that girliness of myself because I was going in pigtails, no makeup, driving fork trucks, lifting 50-pound bags of grain up, steps up to the mill in my overalls, but it was also
Love
because
it.
it was a renaissance, we had to go get customers. So we were literally banging on doors and begging bars to put our craft brew on. And it was hard because we were like, oh, it's like $80 a keg, but they're getting like, Rolling Rock for $33, buy 2, get 1 free. So it was a hand sell because it was not popular except for our little kind of group of home brewers. And so a lot of my career has been like that. And then I just volunteer when I'm interested in something. So my interest and passion informs my decision making about my next career move, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. It's really cool and a lot of foresight for you to make decisions and are able to even spend your one day off to explore the next passion of yours or potentially the next step, and not get paid for it. That's a lot of dedication to the industry. That's really 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 cool, and it certainly has paid off for you.
Well, let's be clear. I don't believe that money is the only currency about having a good life. And part of what I
Right.
coach even with now is how, self-actualization, right? So I feel like you got to have a burning desire and then you should get paid for it. You shouldn't really have
Mm-hmm.
a separation between the two things, a job where you clock in and clock out, and then, this hobby. Why not make it where everything you do and your energies are fruiting in one way or another? So I feel like that's always been under the hood of what drives me. But not until I aged did I realize how really important that was when I did have jobs that were more like a job and it didn't speak to me. So I teach that now, and I feel like the younger generation kind of gets that too. So I think that we'll see more of that hopefully, because it's not, it's too much time you spend at a job for it to not to mean something for the rest of your life, I think.
So how did you get into the technology piece? Because I feel, I'm not a restaurant operator, but for me, I see everything available for a restaurant operator, whether it be your ordering platform, your online ordering platform, your analytics, your CRMs, your gift cards. It just seems really overwhelming that there's so much available. What part of the technology side of the business did you work on?
So that actually goes back to my first job, because my father actually, when PCs came out, I was in high school and I was taking like you know, basic and C plus plus, whatever in high school. So my family owned an airline, Ransom Airlines. And so technology was always really prevalent in our world. And my father was always like really on top of whatever's coming on. Like we had Pong, we had Atari, we had, everything like as it came on, we were early adopters. And so in high school, I wanted my own PC, and my father dumped a bunch of parts on the desk and he said, "You want one? Build one." And we did not
That's
have
crazy.
plug and play back then. My little pocket PC ref, like it was interesting. So I think my father really gave me a great gift because I understood the power of technology from really early age, and so I grew up like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Gen X did, kind of like ones and zeros course through our veins. So it made all the sense in the world when I was using technology in the restaurant to manage the restaurant. Um, it was such a tool, and it really empowered and really gave back the restaurant operator time to focus on what they do well, which is throw a party every day, and but do so with informed decisions and on data or just expediency, or and it was really about the guest experience at the end of the day, because everything that we do with technology frees you up, or should be freeing you up, to be better at that part of the job. So I
Right.
literally am I'm a computer nerd. Like I don't even know if I can say that anymore. I just have always used technology and leveraged technologies to do things, but it's also because I'm extremely lazy. And it makes me
I don't see that at
efficient.
all. That's something I would I
I, I
would call
like to,
you.
I don't like to be inefficient, and I like to, so I
Yeah.
leverage whatever tools are in the toolbox to do so. Um, but how I got into technology as a career, and restaurant technology as a career, was really through consulting. So I started to do my first consulting job was inventory control. And I figured out how to build out this big spreadsheet. And I was going restaurant to restaurant to do people's inventory control with Excel spreadsheets and teach them how to do food costs. You would not believe how people don't know how their business works. And actually that's what drove me to become more industry adjacent, because I was like, wow, so many of these party throwers got into the business because they make the best spaghetti or pasta, but they don't know how they run their business, and they are losing money.
Right.
They are losing relationships. Their life is absolute chaos. They're drinking too much. It's just, I always say that being a restaurant owner is really just being like a volunteer firefighter. Like you're just constantly putting out fires all the time.
It's
But
true.
I really like the
Yeah.
idea of teaching them how to run it like a business, and obviously putting the technologies in place to teach them how to read a P&L, if they even knew what a P&L was a start. So we had to go with technology. So it really came from, how do we make sure we don't lose our shirt, so we can continue to do what we do and do well. Again, like most people are drawn to a career of service. How can I support them so they can continue to do what they do?
That conversation go with them.
Restaurants have been very, very, yeah, they've been very resistant to technology for the many decades I've been in it. A lot of it is antiquated ideas, and they've always done it this way. Some of it was a lot about fear of having their information on the cloud. Um, I saw a
Yeah.
huge shift though after the smartphone came out, because now they saw institutions doing it. They're banking on their phone. They're, and that's when I really saw them start to lean in, like, okay, well, the data is there, but also with the increase in the use of credit card processing, because there was less cash around, which was always another kind of barrier for a multitude of reasons for people to embrace technology, because a lot of their way they were running the business was not exactly correct. Let's just say that they were using cash to run to Restaurant Depot. They were using cash to. So once that went away, and credit card payments went up, they started to soften up on the idea and understood that they could start to gain more control, and not because they without having to lean on cash only business. There's still some of that out there.
Mm-hmm.
You'll still see guys with cash registers and stuff, and they don't want to take credit cards and stuff, and we're never going to be able to untie them. But generational change is changing that. So as we see second, third generation family members take over restaurants, you'll see more technologies in place, because obviously they want to do it the right way. The other thing to note is that when I was my 2 jobs ago, when I was doing restaurant accounting, I got a lot of inbounds, and the new restaurant tour is really not looking to open up one restaurant. They want to open up 10, 15, whatever they want to get. So it's a different person that's opening up and hanging up their shingle. So I feel like that's another reason technology is, you know, more in play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear because you want, for me, being I'm not exactly as ingrained as you were or are, but for me, being passionate about the restaurant owners and the restaurant operators, all you want to do is try to make their lives easier because you know that they're, like you said, they're a volunteer firefighter. They're just running from fire to fire, and like, what tools can you have, available for them to help with those fires, but then also to increase their profits because there's trends coming and they don't always. They're, when you're in your own world, it's like when you work for a supplier, you drink from the Kool-Aid. You drink from the same Kool-Aid. When you're in a restaurant, you don't have time to go out and see all the other restaurants, so you're kind of in your own bubble sometimes. And I think it's kind of probably hard to see what's going on, in other aspects or maybe other genres or types of restaurants to see what trends are happening. So whatever you can do to kind of try to help them, I would think would be, you know, it. It gives you joy. It gives you happiness, just like being in that restaurant when you were throwing a party. You're just helping a different part of the business now, which is kind of come full circle.
Yeah, and it's funny. So pre-COVID, well, one thing I say all the time, like, restaurant owners, you did not historically share information with each other. They were very closed off. They didn't really want to talk about it because it's a very, very competitive business. We're all sharing customers, right? Right. That's just because you have pasta. I'm sharing customers with the taco place next door, even though I sell pasta. So, um, restaurant owners are always keeping an eye on the trends. I really feel like it's much like the fashion industry. Like, if you do not pivot, you are not going to be relevant. And so that's part of the allure, I think, for restaurant people too, because you're constantly able to reinvent yourself and shift. It's an art. It's an art. I try to bring the
Yeah, that's
science to
true.
the art is what I'm doing now, because I just, it is hard. But post COVID, or actually during COVID, I watched the restaurant owners start to share. They had to form together in bonds. And there's a great Facebook group called Restaurant Owners, that really started to be very, very robust. And they were sharing everything. Where do you get plexiglass? Da-da. So that's great. I love that. And also, the restaurant associations, which full disclosure, I'm a president of the chapter of Pennsylvania Restaurant Lodging Association, Bucksmont, on state association meetings, committees as well. But your associations are absolutely critical because of what you just said. Because even when you can come up with operational stuff, talking to each other on a Facebook group or whatever, policy, which really, really affects us, you really have to lean into what your state associations or local associations are doing for you, and definitely National Restaurant Association, to stay on top of trends. So I think it's better than it was. I think that they're a little bit more present, and hopefully they will continue to lean in on the new trend, which is what my new business is, with Zero Proof Go.
Yeah, let's get to that in just a few minutes. Let's talk about any mentors that you've had, um, that's kind of helped you along your journey to where you're at now.
I have to say, Liz Young, she actually runs culinary tours in New York City. I think she's in politics now, but she was my GM when I worked at Bridget Foy's, and of course John and Bridget Foy, because again they let me explore inside their building and try everything on, which was amazing.
Nice.
And then throughout the years, I've had several mentors. I have a very close friend who owns a restaurant in Philadelphia. His name is Stu Keener, and he's been really a presence for me. I would say many. I think I get the most inspiration from the team, from the people that I lead. I know that sounds a little crazy, but um, I'm definitely inspired by the people that I can help more than anything. And so listening to, teams I run either in hospitality or hospitality adjacent, meaning in technology, restaurant tech sales or whatever, I think I learned more from them than I learned from anywhere. But I'm more of like I was born in a hippie environment. My father was a rock and roll musician, and I'm at my heart like really
Cool.
anti-institutional. So the voice of the people is kind of where I get most of my inspiration, if that makes sense, and just watching that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think you're transitioned into the leader that you were meant to be, and that's what kind of charges people. That's what leaders look for. They're inspired by people that they're trying to help throughout their career, and I think that's really 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 cool. That's exactly kind of where I'm at. Well, will be eventually, hopefully, anyway, as I build my businesses up. But I think that, you've experienced a lot of different things. You've been on different parts of the business, and now it's your time to kind of give back to what you've learned and like you said, get inspired because these young people have great ideas. They're different than what we had growing up. Certainly, we obviously for several reasons, and it's a good thing. And we can always learn from those younger generation, and I think that's part of the thing I've really gathered from the podcast is how much those next those up and coming generations are going to kind of tell us what they need, right? In the coming years, what does that restaurant experience look like? Is it going to change? Like you mentioned earlier, yes, you come, you throw a party, but you come and you gather and you talk and you're people and you're a community, sharing a meal together. And what does that look like with the new generation that's always on tablets and phones and scrolling and whatnot? I think that that's a conversation that I wouldn't have thought of without these conversations, which I think is extremely interesting and insightful.
I would say, um, we raise these young people. That's what's some part of my shock right now is that, while in developing Zero Proof Go, I'm having conversations about how the younger generations aren't really drinking. and um and people are kind of shocked about that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, sad, mad, the war on drugs. We inform them to be take better care of themselves, their body, their boundaries, everything else, and now they're not drinking because we raise them that way. Like, we should be celebrating the fact that we helped them break the cycle, right? So they broke the cycle, and or we
Yep.
did collectively as a nation, and that's continued to happen. So I feel like whenever we talk about like the young people, like, these are our kids, these are my kids, these are, so we actually, you know, told them, we said this stuff, and now they're doing it, and we should be listening to them because that's what we wanted for them. We wanted better for them, and now they're telling us what they want, and we have to meet them where we set the stage to set them up for, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. Makes total sense. Yeah, I didn't have kids, so I can't contribute to that.
But we all have kids. Even if you didn't parent a child, we raise each other. Okay, we raise each other with the things we post on social media. We are all in this collective consciousness. So I don't really feel like that's. I think it takes a village. It takes a planet. you know,
Yeah.
and so we're all directly and indirectly contributing to the next generation.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I like that. Are there any resources or any technology that or self-help or any kind of advice or resources that you'd want to share with the audience on how you got to where you are now?
Oh boy, I mean that's volumes and volumes of things. I think the most if I were going to recommend a book today that everybody should read, that it would probably in of itself you'd be like that doesn't make sense for me because I'm not an artist, right? But the truth is, life and living your life is an art form. And if you are becoming self-actualized or trying to live from the inside out, I would say don't outsource your happiness, right? You gotta drive your human experience. I would say read Rick Rubin's The Creative Act right now. That is a very impactful book. And he was a producer and all these other good things and talks about things about art. But the truth is that they're real life lessons. So I think everybody should listen to it too, because I like listening to authors talk about it in their own voice because they intonate the way that they were thinking about it. That doesn't always
Right. Yeah.
make sense, but Rick Rubin's Creative Act. And then, I did quit drinking 3 years ago. Yesterday, 2 days was my anniversary. That book was called,
Oh,
thank
happy
you.
anniversary.
That was called The Naked Mind by Annie Grace. And a lot of the alcohol free community was read her book. And her book actually says in there, go make a difference after reading this. So that's what I did.
I love it. Nice. So let's transition into what you're doing now. How did you get to where you're at in the projects that you're working on now?
So, talking about my quitting drinking, I owned a bar for 20 years. And we just sold it. It was a music venue. It was actually like screaming death metal, punk, ska, mosh pit, the whole thing. Yes,
Fun.
yes. Liquor store. It was really interesting social experiment for me too, because when we bought it, it was a pretty racist sports bar, and I had to reinvent myself because the area that we bought in, like everything changed. Economics changed, the demographic changed, and I grew up like a hippie kid, so racism doesn't make any sense to me. Like anyway, and so we created a real art hub there and community with DJs and people from all walks of life. Every flag we could hang up, we did, and we really brought together a lot of communities that were not that didn't even like each other. I watched that social experiment happen because literally I was like kicking one, I like to say one a hole out at a time when I was running it back 20 years ago, and really being like, no, that's not going to happen in here. This is everyone's space. And I watched like people who did not like each other because of the color of their skin or their politics or their sexuality or whatever bond over a couple interesting things. They bonded over being in a bar, hanging out with people that they wouldn't necessarily see and meeting strangers. They bonded over sports, and that could be that they loved the same team or they hated the same team. Um, and they bonded over music and food. And so I've already kind of been down this road of social change once before in my life. And it's really interesting what you can do with the power of love and community. And sadly, we sold the bar before I started Zero Proof Go. So Zero Proof Go is my new endeavor. And it really kind of dovetails everything that we talked about today. So Zero Proof Go in of itself is a business because that's my language of love. All right, a business. to empower and connect people who are looking for alcoholic beverage alternatives on restaurant and hotel and event menus, to connect them with that. And then brands with the venues and the customer as well. Part of that is because I do believe I've identified that part of the reason this non-alcoholic beverage initiative is taking as long as it is because the restaurants have not embraced the idea of it. Um, and part of that is for some real reasons, and part of it is made up reasons. But as a hospitality, supporter, they're leaving a lot of money on the table. They're also really not being inclusive in their menu programming. And part of that reason is because, unlike the other initiatives that took hold, gluten-free, vegetarian, veganism, whatever, the people who are looking for these kinds of products, these non-alcoholic beverage alternatives, spirit alternatives, whatever, they don't advocate for themselves.
Yeah. Well, there's been stigmatisms and what in the past, and what I think is great about this movement is that a lot of these brands and that the reasons to be, raison d'être is like not just for people that can't drink, it's for people that do drink, it's for people that, maybe they're women trying to get pregnant, like with mocktails, like mocktail beverages, or people that want to take a break. I mean, they had the owners of Athletic Brewing in, and they surveyed their customers, and they're like, no, I don't not drink, I just want to take a break. Or and that's for me. I mean, I probably should drink less like everyone else, and but what I've really dug into is trading off, right? Like I'll have, if I'm driving and I'm going somewhere, we're going to a pool or whatever, or just, after work, if I just want to have a beer, or mowing lawn and you just want to have a beer, but you don't really want the alcohol. It's really kind of been a game changer for me this year. I've really leaned into it, and I love it a lot, and I can't wait to explore, uh, what the offerings that are available.
Yeah, that's great. If you can find them, right? So that's part of the problem, right?
Yeah.
So even those who are doing it, first of all, thank you. If anyone's listening out there and you're a restaurant or a hospitality venue that has a menu, thank you. They're the obstacles that I've identified, the reason that people aren't doing it is they don't think there's a market because we don't advocate for ourselves. But I really want to talk about why we don't advocate for ourselves. Now, I put together an advisory council, and that advisory council is made up of all kinds of people, drinking, not drinking, doesn't matter. I need everybody's voice because we're trying to figure this out as a society, right? Why? Um, and part of it is because, it's uncomfortable to advocate for yourself. We don't broadcast. It doesn't matter why you don't drink or why you're not drinking that night. We don't broadcast it because we're often met, more times than not, with some sort of, I mean, either resistance, lack of accommodation, infantilization. I know that's crazy, but you're looked at as not fun. You are not mature. You're not sophisticated. You are must be an alcoholic because why would you not drink, right? Um, just in crazy. It's literally like if you out yourself, and I call myself a closeted non-drinker. I've been a closeted non-drinker because if you out yourself, you are subjecting yourself to some pretty horrible discomfort. Now, and the whole point I'm going out to drink and eat is because I want to have a good experience and go to a party. So,
Right.
so that is a lot of
Exactly.
what we're trying to do. Is like if there was more inclusive programming, people wouldn't have to say anything because they're just ordering a menu item, and I shouldn't have to ask, and nobody should. And to be honest, when I quit drinking, this is my community. I think we've established that, right? When I quit drinking, I lost my community because I could not. Where do you go when you're going through the hardest thing of your life? You often go to the bar and hang out. And I couldn't find
Yeah.
space there. Like I didn't feel welcome in my own house. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
It's
Like, what? And then I started
yeah,
to
it doesn't.
identify that I was also drinking for free because restaurant servers and bartenders don't charge me for all my tonics that I drink or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, this is just bad business because as I'm watching the swell of Gen Z and millennials, like who don't do that, a lot of it's because cannabis is available too, right? So that's another thing. Like we say, if you don't drink,
100%.
it's because you are an alcoholic. No, it's because now you can get weed. Why would you drink and be depressed when you can be giggling and happy and not have a hangover the next day? It's just a choice, it's just a personal choice.
And now
And now shrooms
shrooms.
or
Who knew?
whatever's going on. Look, this is my thing about Zero Proof Go. We are not anti-alcohol. I am pro whatever choices makes that sense to you. I'm not, and I don't even consider myself sober per se. It's none of your business why I don't drink. Because, but I still
Yep.
deserve choice. I still deserve, and as a hospitality professional has committed their entire life to this, which restaurants are my church. It is bad hospitality not to have an item on the menu for someone who is looking for that. And I'm calling everybody out because and again, like why? So we're doing a lot now. We're doing education on it. We've got some ready to implement programs too. Like, you want a menu, I'll give you a menu. Procurement has been an issue, so we're trying to help people connect with ways to get procurement, and that's from the brand side. But the truth is this is an industry that's going to be $271 billion with a B soon, like in the next 10 years. And my hospitality people have to get
Mm-hmm.
on there and get the money and do a better job at being accommodating and not miss the boat.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's totally leaving money on the table for a teeny tiny little bit of real estate and a couple of social media mentions. And I think it's smart for the hospitality industry and the early adopters to get involved, because people will remember that you got involved and you offered those cocktails. And the more people I talk to outside of the industry, friends, family, they are all experiencing places that are having them on the menus now. So I think um, there is a movement. It's just not big enough, right? And I think that there's at least we're started. We've got a baseline, and there's nothing to do but grow from here, which is all really good news. But you're right. There's some barriers that we're going to have to cross over in order to kind of get to those next 3-4 layers.
Well, that's part of what Zero Proof Go is trying to do. We're trying to accelerate it. So we're trying to accelerate it because
Yep.
and it's fun because I like being a disruptor. I'm not gonna lie to you. I like to shake things up so people have and advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves. Just like my restaurant people, I go and I work on the government for them when they need policy changes. I'm doing the same thing for these people, but for the non-drinker or the for whatever reason. So we say, true, our tagline is we're looking to have a menu of inclusion for people who are not drinking for any reason for any length of time, right? This is, again, not sobriety movement. We're not trying to take that space. We're just trying to get restaurants to do this. And so as I'm doing articles, because part of what we do is we write articles, we interview people, and so there'll be a lot more content on the site to that regard. A lot of the people who have put them in place, like you said, early adopters, they did so with one dry January. And then they were like, wow, they started to see the people who were just melt at the feeling of like, you see me, I feel included, I feel welcome here. And now they have
Yeah.
developed amazing loyalty with those customers. And so they're like, why would I take that off the menu? I'm making more money. I have the same ingredients here, right? So it's not like you're putting crepes on the menu. Now you add a crepe machine. Literally everything you have is right there, right? Um, but that's what we're hoping for
Yeah.
now with Dry January. And so one of the things that we are doing, we announced last night, is a national bar crawl day. National, thank you.
Yay.
Yes, it's called Happy Hour, Happy
Yeah,
for
that sounds
All.
fun.
Happy Hour, Happy for All crawl. And we are going to celebrate those early adopters by taking to the streets and going and having a sophisticated beverage that, for a menu that was designed for us in mind, to support them. So we're really excited about that. And we're getting
Yes.
organizers in all the cities and towns to put together organized crawls, but it really doesn't have to be a manned crawl. You can go onto our website when everybody's listed and just see who's doing it, and then go on that one day. It's a Thursday. It's January 11th, 111. So it's like our own New Year's Day.
I love it.
Yep. And really just say thank you. Really, to be honest with you, thank you. Thanks for seeing me, and thanks for giving me a place. And those who are doing dry January, then they can actually leave their house and be like, okay, well, let's try this out. Everybody should be taking a break from anything. For nothing's good in every day or every month or whatever. So
Right.
even if you're just doing it for a little bit, go out and don't lose your community, right, while you're doing dry January, and feel isolated and sad because that was what you were used to. You can do it. Just do a replacement, or have one non-alcoholic, one alcoholic beverage when you go out, whatever. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I think that's the other thing that people are like, oh gosh, if I quit drinking, then I'm admitting I was an alcoholic. Nobody's auditing your life, brah. Like, you got to take care of you and stop thinking about it. I said, don't outsource your happiness earlier. Don't do that when you're trying to make decisions for your body and for your life. And I think that's what's happened a lot of time in the restaurant space. Some restaurant owners feel like, if I put this on the menu, I'm going to make my drinking clientele feel bad about themselves. I'm like, that is a ridiculous statement. Not one person I have interviewed through this process has said that they lost any of their alcohol business. That's not where we take from. What happens, and I
Right.
have some math, and I talk about this in the Design and Implement Your Zero Proof Go friendly menu, right? This ready to implement. If I can take 25% of your soft drink program, you're going to make thousands more dollars a month, depending on what your sales are. And that's really where we're lifting from.
Yep.
And you're not losing money on me, because I'm not paying for my tonics waters anyway. I'm going to pay $9 for a sophisticated mocktail that's got the cool salts on it. You know what I mean? And you're shaking it, you're putting all the stuff in there. And, let's also not forget, I am major into the adaptogenic beverage world, which is so cool. So my friend owns a zero proof bottle shop and tasting a bar in Buckingham, and she's like, I call her my pharmacist. Like, it's like I go there and she's making me all kinds of cool cocktails. Well, this one's going to kind of chill you out because you're having anxiety, or this is going to make you feel this way. So there's this whole like apothecarian vibe that I call it. And so actually today at 3:00, we're doing a webinar for hospitality professionals to be like, you got to jump on this cool thing, because this is really fun. Changes the whole conversation. Using ashwagandha, or
Right.
using, mushroom based, not mushroom psilocybin stuff, but like, there's a lot of cool stuff out there.
Chagra
Yeah, we did
mushrooms. Man, when I have chagra mushrooms in my coffee, I can really focus. It's really cool. I love
and
them.
that's a sophisticated cocktail. I go out, or even if I'm drinking all night, I can have one of those at the end and not have a hangover tomorrow if I'm a drinker. So there's a real sexy kind of cool programming going on too, that, like we talked earlier about staying on trend and being relevant. That's where I'm like, guys, like, even if you're resistant to all this other stuff, you got to lean into this because it's fun. And guess what? Your staff's probably going to perform better, because instead of drinking all the Red Bull on your gun, they're going to drink like a full adaptogenic thing, and like everything's going to get better as their shift drink or not. So anyway, it's fun out
Right.
there, and it's an interesting time. And I do recommend anybody kind of like diving in because there's no central voice, which is another thing Zero Proof Go is trying to do. We're trying to curate content and kind of just be a portal where you can go and see what's going on. We did a great article on a guy named Danny Childs, who wrote this book called Slow Drinks, about all botanicals and foraging and stuff. Like, so it's really fun stuff too. So it doesn't have to be like a
That's
sad
fun.
bummer.
Yeah.
Do the art, make it cool for your restaurant, make it work for your space, and lean in.
Yeah. No, absolutely. If I could just ask one, you said you've interviewed quite a few people, and obviously you've been in the restaurant industry a long time. Know a lot of people, know a lot of restaurant operators. What do you think are the main reasons for not doing it? Is it because they don't have the time? They're not thinking about it. They don't want to reprint their menus. Like, what are in terms of objections and kind of from a pain point standpoint? What are your main objections?
Well, venue owners in general, there's a lot of reasons, and I have to be very candid here. Sometimes it's because they have a relationship with their own awkward relationship with alcohol. And so we talked about that a little bit. So it could be that they're worried about their drinking crowd feeling they're sending a message that it's okay to not drink, which is ridiculous to me. But there's some of that, but I don't think
Yeah.
that's a lot of that. I think to your point, it's that it's not time. There's no time for it. But to what I was saying, like they don't think there's a market because the market doesn't advocate for themselves. Because so I'm going to tell a story. This just
Yeah.
happens. A friend of a friend, the woman that has the bottle shop, told me that one of her regular customers came by and took one of our flyers for design and implement because she was going to go bring this to a restaurant that she was just at. And it's a very high end
Hmm.
restaurant, very popular around here. And she asked if she could have, if they had a cocktail on the menu. So she advocated for herself, which is very rare. Most people don't. Most people are just like, I'll just drink a tonic or whatever. Um, but she did advocate for herself. And the server said, no, we don't have anything like that. And she said, okay, well, now she wasn't going to leave it at that because she's a strong person, right? She's like, well,
I love it.
well, I see this cocktail on your menu. Can you just make this without the whatever this spirit was? And apparently he said, well, it's not going to taste right. And she's like, I know how it's going to taste. I'm a professional, and she's in the hospitality space too. I want you to order, and just like huffed off and walked away. Now that is so common. And that's why people don't advocate for
Yeah.
themselves. And that's why, and especially that server who has that attitude, probably has a relationship with their own drinking, does not go and tell their owner or the manager that this is going on. I think there's a market for it. They don't say, they don't pass that on. But it's funny because like gluten
Yep.
free, veganism, all that stuff, like they identified a market because those people were very verbal about it. So I think that is definitely part of it, is that we just don't, we're closeted non drinkers. We just like, it's fine, it's just the way it is. But I'm like, no, this is not okay. It's not okay. And another thing that I uncovered, another interview, a woman that I knew worked at TJ Fridays, and I believe that they actually just put on a non-alcoholic beverage menu. I know a lot of the chains are doing because they've got people who are doing research saw that this is the trend. But this woman said that when people come and order from her and ask for a mocktail, she'll just take rum out of it and make the drink as it is. But then there's no place to ring it up in the register. So that's another reason that some of these things aren't even, so you're losing money, not by theft, but by accommodation, because they're like, I don't know how to ring this up.
Yeah.
So your inventory is whacked. And also as a hospitality professional. So there's an argument there too. Like it would be so much easier and efficient to just do it the right way. um, but and I think it's
Yeah.
awareness, and that's what we're doing here. I think the crawl is going to bring some of this awareness to it. Even just the promotion of the crawl is like, hey, maybe I should think about doing this. So
Yeah. So how do people get involved?
we are going to have a lot of webinars for organizers, for venues, for bar professionals. There's always a webinar going on with Zero Proof Go. You can follow us on any of our social media platforms to get that information. I would definitely suggest registering if you are a person who just wants to go on the crawl, if you want to organize in your town, or if you're a venue that wants to be listed, either you have a program in place or you want to have one in place by the 11th, cool. Or a brand that wants to sponsor, because that's the other thing we're trying to do is get brands connected with these people because they're having a hard time reaching their market too. You can register on zeroproofgo.com/HHH4, number 4, all. And that's our registration page. And then we'll reach out to you to let you know what kind of programming would fit how you want to participate.
That's really cool, and that's all over the U.S.
nationwide. Yes. I'd love to go
Nice.
global if
I
it's
love it.
possible. With that, Zero Proof Go is uh, our our business plan is to go global by 2025. Um, there's a new term out there which I love. It's called dry tripping. I'm about to write an article about it. But people are looking for destinations across the globe to go that are alcohol, not alcohol centric. I went to Bali in April for my birthday, and that was a very interesting experience because in Bali it was very hard. Like everything was a mocktail menu, and then if you wanted, it would be like or
Nice.
add vodka for like $2. Like that was it. Add vodka. That was it. Wasn't like Tito's, whatever, stuff like that. No slight on, no
It's the
shade to Tito's,
reverse.
but it was totally reversed. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. Like, but they didn't say you can't drink alcohol. They're like, here, throw vodka in it. Have at it.
Yeah, it's almost like offering different salads with, and then pick your protein,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, what a great concept that would be if we had had a list of cocktails. Just pick your pick your vodka,
Absolutely.
your your tequila, premium, super premium, well, whatever.
Well, just to that point, I just
Interesting.
want to lean into another thing that's in the future. Another reason that I'm doing this is that I'm really trying to prepare restaurants to for the THC CBD universe. At some point, somebody's going to be able to go to you and say, "Can you also add a little gorilla glue to my mocktail?" So this is a primer, right? I'm seeing into the future. This is why we're not sobriety focused. I mean, we want to accommodate as many people as possible, including drinkers, but you got to really have a lens on what's coming. And so there's a whole new universe coming on that, that we need to be prepared for. Um, and, again, it's good hospitality. I think I'd rather have a bunch of people smoking weed in my bar than ever having, because they eat more.
Yeah, they do. That's funny. That's really cool. So is there anything else that you want to talk about that's you're looking forward to or outlook in terms of 2024 that we haven't already kind of talked about?
Well, I have to say some of the trends. National Restaurant Association has already identified this as a swell for across hospitality, which is cool. But there's also brands meeting us halfway. So part of this like idea that alcohol it competes with alcohol, right? That non-alcoholic program competes with alcohol is kind of silly because a lot of the larger brands, Tanqueray has a double zero, and this is internationally. So Captain Morgan has a double zero in UK. Molson just came out saying Gen Z is not interested in drinking, so they're working on some non-alcoholic beverage programming. I think that what I'm really interested in seeing over 2024 is yes, the adoption with everyone's efforts. There's a very big community of people trying to do what Zero Proof Go is doing, so which is great. You're great. Right? We're not trying
Right.
to own it. We want everybody to advance. But I think what you're also going to see is like BYOBs, right? Coffee shops. There's going to be an expansion on their side, so they're going to be taking a lot of this market too. You're going to see more bottle shops opening up, zero proof bottle shops. There are people in the sober space that only really don't want to go to bars, and that's true. They won't even walk into a bar, but there are going to be more
Mhm.
sober bars. There's popping up all over the place. And we want to see Zero Proof Go be a usable website. That's where we are now as we grow and our listings. So once you list your restaurant on the on our site, then people who are traveling can be like, oh, I'm going to New York. Here's 5 places. There's not that ability right now to find that out.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. So, Heather, what do you like to do when you're not working? What are some of your hobbies?
Well, I love to cook. I'm an Airbnb consultant, so I'm
Nice.
still in hospitality. So I work on Airbnb projects a lot. I know I don't really have a hobby. Like I said, I'm self actualized in a way where business is like the way I do my life. I'm in art right now, so I'm painting and I play music. So, play guitar and sing. That's pretty much it. I don't go
Nice.
out that much, uh, which for obvious reasons. so, so,
Right.
so there's that. But yeah, like a lot of creative stuff, meditation, really into just. I don't know. I like little joys now. I got to a point in my life where little things just make me so incredibly happy and full. So walking the dog and painting and listening to music.
Yeah, chilling out a little bit. You worked your, the restaurant industry is certainly not easy. So now you can kind of take some of those moments and enjoy them a little bit more, like walking the dog and and playing music just for fun, not in a bar or not because you're in a band or
We
or
really only
entertainment
have little
reasons,
moments, Jesse. We really only have little moments, and
Yeah.
all the little beautiful moments string together a beautiful life. So when I turned my attention to focusing on the beauty in the smallest thing, everything got bigger, if that makes sense. Everything's meaningful. And
Yeah, totally.
so
I
I just
like
lean
that.
into joy. And, that's part of my journey I've been on, through reducing alcohol intake. Well, for me, I stopped drinking entirely. Is now I can see clearer, and I can see that I don't need to escape life, because life is absolutely chock full of such cool stuff. And I want to do all of it before I move on, cross the rainbow bridge or whatever. So,
Yeah, and as we get older, it's harder and harder to um, you know, process and get up the next morning. So you have a lot more clarity, a lot more energy. You're not forgetting things as much probably as as we do. Even a couple of drinks, it's like I don't remember what happened. It's like what, you know. You, that's really awesome. I love that. I think that's we're ending on a really awesome note, and you know, one for everybody to remember. The simplest things in life are the ones that you know are the most important because they kind of they string along the whole journey, and I love that. That's very inspirational, Heather. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I wish you all the luck in the world with this project. If we've talked before, whatever I can do to help, I am leaning in a little bit on this movement as well because I believe in it so much, and I believe the inclusion is extremely important for all experiences, all people, all reasons, and 360, whether it be a restaurant needing it on the menu because they can, it's from a business standpoint to a customer just enjoying themselves even more. Um, at having their party, right? At their
I think,
party.
yeah, I would also like to just say to all the listeners out there, if possible, is that the one thing that you can do if you're a drinker is be an ally for those who are not. Because part of this is that, they lose community. And through the holidays, we're talking in November right now, through the holidays, be inclusive in your own programming of your house. You're having a house party, go grab an athletic, go grab a Go Brewing or Lagunitas, or go grab something and just be hospitable to your friends and family, because if they are going through this journey, you got to just be a little bit mindful of that and just show
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of solidarity. So we have a little bit of a program coming out called Be an Ally over the holidays, and just nothing. It's even if it's hard to find. So the great thing about non-alcoholic spirits and stuff is that you can easily just find them on Amazon. You don't have to go to a special store for liquor stores and carry it, because you can buy it anywhere. Target's carrying it, Walgreens. Pick something up, grab it, throw it on there. You don't have to be
Yeah.
crazy about it. So if you can't do anything else, be an ally.
Well said. Be an ally. I love that. Well, I will be as much as I can to the initiative, and whatever I can do to help you out. Like I said, I really mean that. I think it's really important what you're doing. I think we need advocates like you doing this to really help push this initiative to the next levels as fast as we can, because it is really important. So thank you. All right. Well, we'll see you soon. Keep in touch. I can't wait to see what happens here. And best of luck with your happy hour on January 11th of 24. That's going to be exciting. If you're a restaurant, make sure you check out Zero Proof and sign up, and let's get our happy hour on. Let's get our sober happy hour on, right?
Let's
It'll be
freaking
fun.
Zero Proof go. That's what I say.
Zero proof go. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, I will let you go this time. I could sit here and talk to you for a long time because I just absolutely love hearing you talk about your experience and what you're doing. So super inspirational.
Thanks.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Next week, I'm speaking with Andrew Nelson, co-founder and president of War Room Cellars. He is from Ojai, California, and his background is deep in the viticulture side of the business. And before he started War Room Cellars, he worked for Diageo as a vineyard manager as well as a procurement and sourcing through his grower relations manager role. He started War Room Cellars to find companies or brands that may be tired or need a little attention or maybe rebranding and turn them around, which he and his team have done very successfully. We tried 4 amazing wines on the podcast, but the most unique one was Bonnie Doone's orange wine, which he is up for sending out free samples to try. You can reach him at andrew@warroomcellars.com. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as we did recording it. Andrew is a great guy and a ton of fun. Plus, who doesn't have fun tasting 4 wines?
Tune in next Thursday and have a great week. This week's episode was produced by Fedora J Productions.